So last year I stumbled upon a video from a creator that I was following at the time. That video was in response to someone using a term that many Latinos and Latinas despise. In that response, the person in the video, who is Mexican, not the creator, said that every single Mexican said that this term is like calling them a slur. The creator also said some other stuff that I will be talking about in this video that they told that someone in the comments. But then I, as someone who is Latino and also Mexican, chimed in and told the creator that I looked into the term and found no evidence to support what the creator, had said. The creator then decided to double down and repeat what they told the other person to me. Therefore, I'm making this video to call in not just those who aren't Latin American, but also Latinos and Latinas, because many of you believe the stuff that I will be talking about in this video. And anyone is welcome to watch this video, by the way. Anyway, it's time we have an honest discussion about the term Latinx. Before I go on, I want to clarify that I was going to make this video last year after that creator that I used to follow doubled down on me. But I never got to finish it, even though I was almost finished with it, and kind of forgot about it. I'm only making this now because it's rather much needed, so here's the short version. If you're somehow new to the term, Latinx is a term used to describe someone of Latin American heritage, like Latino and Latina. However, it serves as a gender-neutral alternative to the former two. Another gender-neutral term is one that I use most often, which is Latine. Both terms are meant to be inclusive. Now, the term Latinx is not without controversy. A lot of Latin Americans, particularly those who use either Latino or Latina, do not like the term for different reasons. One of those reasons is how impractical the term may be. I personally don't use it because of this, and also because Latina is a much better term in my opinion. But if I'm being completely honest, it doesn't really matter what I or many other Latinos or Latinas think of the term Latinx. At the end of the day, it's up to us to decide how we want to identify. I personally prefer to be identified as Latino due to the fact that I am a cis man. Of course, if I'm lumped into a group of people of different genders or sexes, in other words, if the term is being used as a general catch-all term for Latin Americans, then I won't care if you use Latina or Latinx even. It's as simple as that. Or at least it would be if it weren't for Latinos and Latinas who absolutely despise the term for, in my opinion, outlandish reasons. 3 of which I will go over due to how prevalent it is among the demographic. And what are the 3 reasons? The first reason of the 3 that many Latinos and Latinas hate the term Latinx is because it was created by white people, or liberals depending on who you ask. Now, you would think that white people creating a new term for people of a different ethnicity or race than theirs would be problematic. And it is. So I decided to look into the history of Latinx and look through several articles. None of them say that the term was created by white people. In fact, the term can't even be traced back to one single person. Many of the articles say that Latinx was first seen in the early 2000s on the internet, possibly used by queer people on message boards and blogs, according to Jean Guerrero via the LA Times. Although some sources will give a more specific year, such as 2004. Some articles do mention the claim of white people creating Latinx, but even then there's no evidence to support it. I did, however, stumble upon a link under History.com's article Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, Chicano, the history behind the terms by Yara Simon. That took me to a USA Today opinion article by Giancarlo Sopo, Progressives, Hispanics, and Latinx. Stop trying to anglicize our Spanish language. Despite implying in the title that white people, or more specifically English-speaking progressives, created or at least imposed a new term on Latin Americans, the author never brings forth any evidence to suggest that anyone who isn't Latin American created the term, although he does mention that it began in the 2000s among activists. And he's not the only Latin American who opposes Latinx to do this. The second reason is that the white people creating Latinx are colonizing the language. There was a longer argument against this one, but for the sake of time, I'll shorten it. Let's say white people did create Latinx. Allow me to ask you something. If Latinx is colonizing the language, then is saying already existing Spanish words used in English colonizing the language, like taco? What about words in English that are used in Spanish, like computadora? Now, I am using Mexican Spanish as an example of the English to Spanish, Spanish to English words question. After all, Mexican Spanish does use a lot of words that are from the English language due to Mexico's proximity to the United States, especially along the US-Mexico border. And there's two reasons why I chose Mexican Spanish. One, I'm Mexican American. Two, sometimes when people reference Latin Americans, they for some reason say Mexicans. For instance, the person I mentioned earlier, the one who said that every single Mexican said that Latinx is like calling them a slur. And we've got to stop referring to all Latina people as Mexicans because, and I should not have to say this, not every Latina person is Mexican. As a Mexican American, I fucking hate that, but I digress. Also, Spanish isn't the only language spoken in Latin America. Sure, many Latin American countries speak Spanish, but people who hate Latinx tend to forget that there are a variety of other languages, two of which are French and Portuguese, spoken in Haiti and Brazil respectively. Both also use words from the English language. Oh yeah, by the way, the claim of colonizing the language doesn't make sense when you realize that the Dutch, the French, Portuguese, and Spanish empires also participated in the colonization of the Americas, not just the British Empire. What I'm trying to say is that even if white people did create Latinx, it honestly wouldn't matter anyway because not only does the Spanish language use words derived or taken from English and or vice versa, but it is quite impossible for one colonizer language to colonize another colonizer language. The third and perhaps most offensive of them all is, of course, how Latinx is a slur, worse than a slur, or like calling them a slur. I say most offensive because it seems to me that people who hate Latinx downplay the impact of actual slurs when they say it's like calling them a slur, whether or not they realize it. Unlike Latinx, slurs were historically used to harm us. For example, and don't say this if you aren't Latine, wetback, which originally referred to only Mexicans, by the way. Without going too much into detail, in 1954 there was a program called Operation Wetback, which was a mass deportation effort that deported 1.3 million people, though this number is disputed, including some American citizens. Using military tactics and propaganda, the US Border Patrol crammed these people into buses, boats, and planes and sent them to Mexico, often without due process. I didn't know about this and more people need to know about it, so I encourage you to check out two articles about Operation Wetback, which I'll link in the description if you're on YouTube. I'm also doing a disservice by giving you a shortened and simplified version of Operation Wetback, so please check those articles out. It's worse than I described, however. Anyway, all that to say, Latinx has never been used to discriminate against Latinos or Latinas like Wetback has. Stop comparing Latinx to actual slurs. And yeah, that's it. If you don't like the term Latinx, that's your right. This video wasn't made to make you like it, but rather discourage people, particularly Latinos and Latinas, from believing bullshit like how Latinx was created by white people, or that it's colonizing the language, or that it's a slur or like a slur, and using said bullshit to hate on the term and people using it. You can check out my sources and script for this video in the link in the description if you're on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.